Hello everyone and welcome to the Commexis cast, all of the news you need to know from our inbox to yours. Today we're talking about Pinterest expanding their Pinterest Marketers Partner Program. That's a tongue twister there, folks. Hello everyone, I'm Matthew McGrorty, the videographer and a podcaster here at Commexis, and today I am joined by the lead strategist at Commexis, Phillip.
Hello.
So today we're talking about Pinterest adding some new creative agencies and expanding the Pinterest Marketers Partners Program, which is quite the tongue twister, I will say. So for those of you who don't know, a really long time ago, probably about a year or two or so, Pinterest began this Pinterest Marketing Partners Program. God, that's hard to say. They expanded it, they created it, and basically that was a way for brands to get in touch with influencers and other creative individuals and stuff like that, and basically help them create marketing materials for their social media campaigns, for other things like that. So what Pinterest has done now is that they're offering advertisers 7 new platforms that provide creative elements for ad campaigns. They are calling these the creative PMPs, and PMP stands for Pinterest Marketing Partner. I know. PMP is a nice.
Maybe you should have led with that one.
Maybe I should have. You're right. So these include Popular Pays, Quick Frame, Shutterstock Custom, Social Native, VidMob, Vidsy, and the Online Studio. Some of these, for example, VidMob, they also have worked with Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat in the past. So, for example, I was actually checking out VidMob after seeing some of these pieces, and they've worked with them before, as you probably have also heard. A while ago, Facebook did something very similar to this when we talk about, branded content for brands and stuff like that. So nothing too unfamiliar. So there's a quote from Alex Gutler and Jiri Kidwell. They are the writers for the Pinterest business blog. They said, "Since Pinterest is visual and personal, creating good pins requires a special touch. With our new PMPs, marketers get access to teams already trained by our Pinterest creative strategy team on our best practices." That's also quite a long title. So Pinterest, just so everybody knows, has actually been doing very well in the advertising world in terms of expanding their advertising on the platform. So in April, Pinterest reported that it had 1.5 million businesses connecting with customers on its site each month and is continuing to grow its list of small business advertising on the platform. They saw a 50% year-over-year jump in small business and medium-sized businesses advertisers since last year. So that was in April. So since 2017, they saw a 50% jump. So I've heard a lot about, and read a lot about Pinterest, really breaking through in a sort of interesting new visual way for advertisers. Phillip, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I'm curious to see exactly what how their metrics are measured. I'm not sure what they consider an impression. Is it somebody actually adding a pin? Does that give somebody a larger? Does that count as something more than just an impression? I'm not really sure what their marketing funnel looks like that they're teaching and training people on. But I think anytime that you can have somebody from the platform itself sit down and say, here are our best practices, here's the easy ways to follow them, and give people a blueprint for what to follow, it makes things so much smoother, and you don't get so much of a, first of all, you avoid problems on the back end because you don't need to hire as many people to police that portion of the thing. You're not going to start getting as many ads taken down as I imagine you see on Facebook on a daily basis, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So whatever their compliance is, at least you can say, hey, everybody that's on this platform so far has been trained in our best practices and our standards, so it should be a lot easier to enforce those rules as well. But I also think that just the fact that really makes a partnership between the platform and these people. I'm not even going to attempt to say that again that you said, but I think that those kinds of partnerships really show that there's an investment in the platform in trying to get people's their success becomes the shared success. So Whereas a lot of times you get the impression that these people feel like they're doing you a favor by letting you advertise on their platform. When they do these kinds of programs, I really think it shows an investment on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Pinterest is in a very good spot in the sense of they are small enough where they can go to a lot of these platforms and say, hey, we want to do this partnership, but also help the brands out who, how do you advertise on Pinterest in comparison to, say, a Facebook or an Instagram or something like that, because Pinterest is so much different. It's the same thing that we saw Snap do, though. To some extent, Snap has been historically a little less helpful to some of the brands that have been trying to advertise on it. But for a long time, people were like, how do we advertise on Snapchat? I can't figure this out because it is so radically different from the Facebooks and the Instagrams. So I think Pinterest is in a really interesting spot with this. And another thing that actually James Van Horn, our paid placement specialist, you can see blurred in the background back there,
who just it's not, believe me, that's not beer. As sad as we are about it, that was not a beer.
I'm sure that was probably a monster, I'm assuming. Yeah. Was it a monster, Jim?
All right. It was a monster noise.
Come on, Jim.
All right.
So
it is Friday.
He was actually telling us that he's read a lot of case studies and stuff like that talk about how good Pinterest is for hitting that millennial audience. So you're getting, mostly millennials, though somewhat a little bit younger, probably, I'm sure, on this platform. Whereas on something like Snapchat, you might get a decent millennial population, but you're also going to be hitting a significantly younger age group.
Yeah, one thing, if I can kind of go back to what the points I was making earlier, another thing I just kind of thought of as we were talking, is that a lot of times on these platforms too, you get sort of a hit or miss sort of element to what you're doing. You try this and see if it works, or it seems like when you have a guide inside the process, they can try to give you a little more direction as to what's likely to work for your brand on their own platform. So you're not just throwing money down a hole and hoping that it resonates with the audience that you're targeting. They seem to be a little more invested in helping you reach that audience, and I think that's a level of personalization and a level of relationship that you're not seeing from these other platforms. And I think that that's a differentiator for them in the space.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to be keeping an eye on a lot of the way that Pinterest is going to be growing in this area, because we're interested in using Pinterest for a lot of our clients. Well, not a lot of them, but some of them that it would be very helpful to reach the younger audiences and stuff like that, because Pinterest really does have some really interesting visual tools. It's the way I always think of it is like Instagram, but you get that additional text that's easier to read. You can see more things on screen at once, things like that.
Yeah.
So,
and I think really just the ability to organize the things that you can do with Pinterest. Really, the taxonomy makes it so much more useful, especially if you're saving things that you're looking at. And I think it's obviously that's the purpose that it was intended for. And you don't get that functionality with any others. I mean, you have tons of great things that you can just create. I mean, I have boards all over of silly things that I just did, just one day I was like, oh, let me just start saving some of this stuff. So, I think that's a really useful feature that is, again, not to overuse the word, but a differentiator for them in the space.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that I really like about it is it's like hashtagging, except that it's way easier to find one specific person's group of, in this case, pins and boards and stuff like that, but hashtags, because you can use the hashtag anytime you want, but tons of other people are going to be using it.
Not just recipes anymore.
Exactly. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to today's episode of the Commexis Cast. Thank you to Phillip for joining me on today's episode. If you'd like to listen to us a little bit more, you can check us out on TuneIn, Stitcher, the iTunes Podcast Store, and SoundCloud. And if you'd like to watch us, you can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and our YouTube page. Sorry, folks, had a little brain thing there. On YouTube, you're probably watching us on there right now, or you're listening to us on one of those other platforms, hopefully. Hey, hello, everyone. So thank you very much for listening and watching today's episode of the Commexis Cast, and check us out next time for more. Thank you.